Turn on the tap and you expect clean water to come out, right? Well, in one New Mexico town, customers thought their water was clean until they found out the town was rigging the tests, putting everyone's health at risk. The state caught them in the act, and when News 13's Dean Staley put them on the spot, they got a sudden case of amnesia.
The village of Ruidoso in south central New Mexico has always been an oasis in the desert, where people come from hundreds of miles to enjoy the scenery, the high mountain air, and the water. But these days, there are problems with that water.
The most recent issue was just this last weekend when they told us we had to boil water.
Joe Bonzale moved here from Phoenix 6 years ago.
It's bad and getting worse. We have a filtration system for the water coming in, and then we have a separate one, again, filtering just the drinking water.
But Ruidoso has a bigger problem. A problem that goes much deeper than the water supply.
I'll say that it was misleading information that was provided.
It's a slippery slope. When you start modifying the data, that becomes a convenient way out. You don't do that.
Years of drought have taken their toll on Ruidoso's Grindstone Reservoir. At the water treatment facility down the hill, they are struggling to keep the water flowing.
That's a good example of what they call flock. That's what's being removed from the water.
As the water level in the reservoir drops, it delivers water with higher and higher concentrations of metals and minerals. Last summer, that water was getting harder and harder to treat. That's when the State Environment Department says workers here at the Grindstone plant took a shortcut.
Our investigation shows that there was falsification of data and an attempt to cover that up.
These meters measure water clarity. The levels are constantly monitored, recorded, and reported to the state each month. If the amount of metals, minerals, or other materials in the water is too high, the water is unsafe to drink.
Viruses, pathogens, giardia, things that really could have an effect and impact on one's health.
This scathing report from the Environment Department says that in May of last year, Supervisor Tom Stewart ordered a worker to install a filter in the line ahead of the meter.
That is a clear violation because the filter would alter the numbers, okay? And there's a potential for a public health risk there.
When Village Utilities Director Randall Camp heard about the filter, he called the State Environment Department. During a state inspection, Tom Stewart denied there was a filter in place, but when a state inspector asked a worker to open the cartridge, there was in fact a filter inside.
Basically, I went ballistic. There's no excuse for that.
And it gets worse. The report says that the village manager, Debbie Lee, did an internal investigation that the state calls factually inaccurate.
Miss Lee's investigation was pretty much a total farce, and she should have stayed out of it because at that point in time it was a New Mexico Environment Department investigation.
Lee refused to talk to us on camera, saying she had not yet read the state's report. We found no reports that anyone in Ruidoso got sick from the water, but the Environment Department says the behavior was so egregious they want to revoke the water treatment certifications for Tom Stewart and Gary Goss. The department also issued a $48,000 fine to the village of Ruidoso for the 2 weeks' worth of bogus reporting.
We had this vat up here. We had to set it up here so we could gravity feed.
When we visited last week, the plant operator, Gary Goss, showed us around. He is the man the state accuses of reporting those falsified numbers on water quality.
The accusation from Environment was that someone had put a filter in here to artificially reduce turbidity before it was measured.
Well, that was out in the clear well, and hold up.
That's when we were interrupted by Deputy Village Manager Ron
He
Senna.
was asking about the filter and the clear well thing.
Senna made it clear those questions were off limits.
We don't have any knowledge of that. No, let me ask you this. You say you don't have any knowledge of that? I mean, it seems to me that Gary's been here the entire time. So how can you not have any knowledge? Well,
We are still waiting for an answer, and so is the State Environment Department.
I really wish the village would get their act together. They need to understand the rules and the regulations and that they can't make their own rules and regulations.
Meantime, the people of Ruidoso are taking matters into their own hands.
I trust it because it goes through 2 other additional filters before I drink it.
In Ruidoso, Dean Staley, KRQE News 13.
Earlier this month, Tom Stewart quit his job with the village of Ruidoso and moved out of state. The village has 30 days to respond to the state's accusations. The case was so alarming to the state that the Environment Secretary is now pushing to make falsifying data like this a crime.